What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video we're gonna be working on the channel's favorite car, the best car ever made, the BMW E46.
Best car ever made.
We're back with another E46 video. We're gonna be working on Thomas's car today. If you're familiar with the channel, we did a coilover install on his car. MaXPeedingRods, which is the video sponsor, they reached out and they said if we wanted to try out their brand new T7 coilovers. We're gonna go ahead and install the T7 coilovers on the E46 for you guys. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the car, because there's a couple changes that have happened since we last recorded it. We're here with the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Brady, the man himself. Can you explain why there's a gray hood and unpainted fender on your vehicle?
3 months ago, Joe's been testing his car, racing some people, so we decided to run it. I hit about Mach 2, just totally blew past Joe. Not too good at handling when you get up to Mach 2, guys.
I can barely steer.
There was some things that had gotten in the way.
What type of thing was it?
We don't need to talk about that. We went down to the local junkyard and we saved this hood. We gave it a nice new home.
I'll put the pictures on screen right now how it looked like. He ended up saving it, so that's kind of the update on it. Other than that, he has been running the original MaXPeedingRods coilovers that we have on this E46. They are not the revised versions. They're like the very first versions of the MaXPeedingRods, the OG versions. We are going to be swapping those out for, again, the T7 coilovers that MaXPeedingRods sent out. So in comparison to the OGs, the T7s have racing oil and they also have just better overall build quality. These are made for daily use and also for light track use. That was a big focus that they had on them. We are going to be showing you guys the installation process. Again, we've done this before, but we'll be able to go ahead and show you guys what we've picked up with the MaXPeedingRods coilovers. We've installed a couple sets already, so we're pretty familiar with them, and we'll show you a little bit of tips that we found in order to make sure that these last as long as possible. One thing to note before you start installing any of the coilovers that you get from MaXPeedingRods, you want to make sure you triple check every single bolt and every single collar that is on the coilover. It's just a good rule of thumb to do with any coilover, because a lot of times you'll see people say that their MaXPeedingRods were knocking as soon as they installed them. Typically the fix is going to be just adjusting this nut right here to be all the way down, so tightening all the way. And in order to do that, you're going to need a 22mm wrench, and you're also going to need a 9mm wrench. And like I said, as you're doing this, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of play for it to keep going down, but once it reaches that final point, it'll get pretty tough to tighten it. At that point, you know that it's tight all the way. So you want to make sure you do this to the fronts and the rears. Make sure you do that to all of them to make sure that it's tight. This will just help to eliminate that false knock that you get, and this happens to be the fix like 9 times out of 10. Another thing we have to do to only the front coilovers is make sure that the preload is set properly. I always like to double check and make sure that everything is set properly when I install the coilover, just to avoid any problems in the future, making sure everything's tight and everything is in spec. One thing that I like to do is make sure that the preload is set correctly. So easiest way to do it, go ahead and loosen both of the collars on the top portion so that the spring can rattle around a little bit. Once you have it rattling around, you're going to take the top one and you're going to have it just barely touching the spring to where it can't jiggle around anymore. You'll bring the bottom one, have it touch the top one. From there, you're gonna adjust the top one and while keeping the bottom one in place, and you're gonna adjust it roughly like 4mm. And if you don't have any way to measure that, a good way and a good rule of thumb is just to use the wrench that comes with your coilovers and measure from between the bottom one and the top one. There should be a gap that is the width of the wrench. That's how you know you set it properly. Once you have it with that gap, you can go ahead and push the bottom collar all the way up, and you can go ahead and tighten everything, and that's how you set the preload to your coilovers. You can make sure that everything's done properly. Thomas has given up on the install already. He saw that he has to take off bolts, and he said that is not my job.
That is not my job.
So we have to take off that sway bar end link. It's a 15 millimeter, and then there's a bolt that holds the coilover onto the knuckle, and that is a 19 millimeter. After that, we can go ahead and take off the top nuts, and after we take off the nuts, we'll be able to remove the coilover and be all good to go.
It's not like it's an important bolt or anything. It only holds the coilover at the bottom.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm adopted.
I mean, I was kind of suspecting.
Alright guys, so this corner is done. The coilover is installed, so we have the sway bar end link back on. We're just going based off of the last coilover, the one that we had installed. Everything's good on this one, so now we're gonna go to the rear, and then we'll jump to the other side and we'll finish it off. Ended up taking out the rear shock and also the spring. We got two nuts that we have to remove at the top. You also have to remove the bolt on the bottom, which is down over here. Another thing we have to remove is the bolt and nut from the bucket to the spring. After that, we are able to install the new shock and spring. Another thing to remember is to take off your parking brake, please. That'll make it so much easier to push it down, or else it will be really stiff. And we learned that the hard way last time we were installing it. So we've been driving on the coilovers for a bit around the city. Thomas, what are your thoughts, first impressions on these brand new coilovers?
Definitely more responsive than the previous ones. The amount of adjustment that they give you with the knobs on the top, that you can adjust it to whatever feels more comfortable for you, whether you want it all the way soft, somewhere in the middle, or all the way stiff.
In everyday driving, you obviously don't want to be very stiff. You want to be able to have a comfortable ride. You can go full soft and be able to absorb the bumps a lot better, and then you can go all the way stiff and do, you know, track days in the car. All right guys, so that's gonna be it for this E46 video. If you guys are interested in picking up a set of coilovers for your car, there will be a link in the description and a link in the comments, so go ahead and check that out. It does help out the channel. As far as more E46 content, will we be making anymore? Probably not. But that's what I always say. So maybe in once in a blue moon you'll see the E46 again, and then we'll have another update for it. There will be plenty of G35 content in the future, so don't worry, this isn't a whole permanent thing. So like I said, those were the new set of coilovers that MaXPeedingRods does have for the E46. They are the T7 coilovers for MaXPeedingRods. They are for more daily driver focused vehicles with light track use as well. So go ahead, check those out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
I said, why'd you throw a nut?
Oh, I thought you said why'd you nut? I said I didn't do it on purpose. Oh shit, still recording.